Welcome to It Begins With Us, the podcast about domestic violence abuse. It is our mission to help anyone in a domestic violence situation. We started this podcast
as a safe space for survivors to tell their stories.
Completely confidential.
We can disguise your voice.
You can be off camera, and we're here to listen. Let's get started. Welcome to It Begins With Us. We are on episode 6, and today we have a special guest.
Yes, it is Stacy Lauritzen, and she is with United Voices Rising, a new organization that's coming to Eastern Idaho as well. Welcome, Stacy.
Yes, welcome.
Yes, and welcome back. Welcome back, you guys, too. We've been a little MIA because holidays and people have been sick. So we just want to say thank you guys that have continued to support us and watch us. A lot has been happening lately, and we have a lot happening. Yes. We're excited for the new year, 2025. We're taking off strong, and yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to be here.
Yes.
So, yeah. All right, Stacy. Well, we have some questions for you. We're excited to have you on the podcast today. You are a survivor, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, and you also you started this foundation, right? Recently.
Yes, I started my own healing process really intensively 3 years ago, and the things that I was going through and remembering really helped me with my therapist, and it really helped me on that healing journey. And I thought, more women need this. More women need this therapy. It's expensive. Psychotherapy and holistic therapies are expensive, and if you don't have insurance for psychotherapy, then it's even more expensive. And insurance companies do not cover the holistic therapies. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought there has to be some kind of organization out there that helps with the cost of that. And nationwide, I couldn't find anything that was helping women, specifically survivors of sexual trauma, mm-hmm. and sexual assault. And so I'm like, well, okay, God, yeah, I'm listening to you. I hear you. Let's do this. So I knew nothing about a nonprofit. And I said, okay, I'm all in. And then I met you. And
I'm like, that.
Okay.
Yes. She reached out to us, and it was just like meant to be.
Yeah.
And then when she walked in, it was just like the whole
peace and healing energy.
Calm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We immediately went for a hug.
I'm not a hugger. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So I want to ask for our listeners that have never heard of holistic healing or therapy. I know what it is, but a lot of people don't and haven't heard of it. When I learned about it, I was just like, wow, this is so new. How come we don't hear about it? So can you explain to us what that is?
Yes. So holistic therapy. So one that is a therapy throughout the United States is called CAP, K-A-P. It's ketamine assisted psychotherapy. So the ketamine, which is administered different ways with a guide and therapist, and there's always a medical professional, at least with the therapies that I've done, to kind of watch over you and make sure you're okay. Mm-hmm. But the medicine allows your guard to kind of come down so you can walk into therapies. Easy, I can't say easier because it's never easy, but to walk into those therapies without, how do I explain this?
Like
without being closed off
or closed off.
Yeah. Not being closed off, but also not re-experience it over and over and over, like the traumas. Mm-hmm. And so it allows you to kind of look at that trauma and reevaluate or reprocess what that did for you, your body, and your mind. So holistic is your mind body together. And so
And the
that is
energy,
the
right? Is that
yes,
correct?
yep,
Okay.
it's all in one.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to do that alongside the psychotherapy allowed me to reprocess my memories and not feel them as if I was going through the trauma again, if that
Okay.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
And so where I went through that for the last 3 years,
Mhm.
it's expensive.
Yeah.
And I was
believe-
fortunate enough that my insurance takes care of the psychotherapy. And then I had other means for the ketamine treatments. For those, I had 8 ketamine treatments. And I was fortunate enough to be able to afford that. But many, many women are not able to do that.
Mhm.
It's just not in the budget. And
Especially
so
when
it's,
if you've been abused, like you're.
yeah,
I feel like we've talked about this before. We see that like the lower income families usually, or not usually, but like it's more common in lower income class, I guess, to go
right.
through the abuse. So yeah, that totally makes sense.
Well, and you don't have the resources, the money resources to be able
Right.
to utilize some of those therapies that that was the turning point for all of the abuse and everything that I was remembering. And so I don't know how I would have gotten through that without these therapies. And I mean, it was that influential in my life. And yeah, if you are at, an income level that's not even possible,
Mhm.
you don't even think that you can be healed in that way.
Right.
And so that's my motivation
Mhm.
for United Voices Rising, is to fundraise that money so that women can have access
Yeah.
to those therapies.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. It'd be
Yeah.
so
for
good
sure.
for
And
our
even
area.
just having the knowledge, like I had no idea that this was a thing. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like
Yep.
I would benefit from this program to do this for myself, because there's so much that I still emotionally and mentally that I go through, just when I remember things, or trying to heal, or getting back into the same patterns over and over again with relationships, because I haven't healed that part of me. And I don't know how. Like I've taken just, regular counseling, therapy, and it's not enough.
Right.
No.
No, I get that. And those intrusive memories, like they kept me up at night. Like I would have nightmares where I'm jumping out of bed.
Yeah.
And how would you know how to process that? How would you know, especially on your own? And then to understand that not all therapists are created equal.
Yeah.
And so they may or may not even have that training. And you can look for their references, like if they have KAP, then they have gone through some kind of training or have that experience. And that's what I would recommend. And that's what our foundation looks for. They have to have, those therapists have to have that training, because we want to make sure that their safety is 100%. Our number one priority is the women's safety, mentally, physically, and everything. And so that's why the medical provider is there. And then you have specifically trained therapists in the CAP program. So, I mean, how else would we know what to do? Yeah.
Do you know of other people that have gotten this done, or how did you find out about it? Because I hadn't ever heard about it until you mentioned it.
Right. Well, I had a friend, and she had said, Stace, because I had confided in her kind of 2 years ago what was going on in my life, and these intrusive memories and nightmares and everything. And she says, maybe you should look into, I think it was on, I can't remember. I can't remember. It was a program that or a movie documentary
Mm-hmm.
that she recommended me to watch, and it was about other, like ketamine is a medication.
Mm-hmm.
Ketamine is a they use it in hospitals and everything to put you under, but other psychedelics. So this documentary was all about the other types of psychedelics that can get you into that state that you can actually really do therapy. And since then, so 2 years from there,
Mm-hmm.
so 3 years total, all these other scientific things have come out with different psychedelics. Now, obviously, ketamine is the only legal one across the
Mm-hmm.
United States. And so that's why we at United Voices Rising is going to be using ketamine first. Now, if anything else becomes legal,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like therapy goes and psychedelics, then we'll also be utilizing different things. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where the holistic part comes in.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. Was somebody recommended me to
Mm-hmm.
watch this documentary, and then I went into my therapist's office or my therapist, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about these things?" And she was already knowledgeable,
Mm-hmm.
very, very knowledgeable
Uh-huh.
about all of that and ketamine. And so
Okay.
she had a friend that runs the ketamine clinic in Idaho Falls, who's become a really dear friend to me now. And we just kind of went from there. And Christina, who runs the ketamine clinic, just takes really good care of you and walks you through everything. And so I just decided, okay, let's try this therapy, because I wasn't finding anything else that was helping me.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't anything. I mean, I love my therapist and she's great,
Right.
but nothing else was helping me with these intrusive memories and
Mm-hmm.
these nightmares
Right.
and these triggers that, like, in the middle of like the store can
Right.
happen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm 51 years old, and this started when I was 47, and not the memories, because I've always remembered some of things, but I've been able to push them away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And until I wasn't able to push them away, they just kept bubbling back up. That's 3 years ago when all of these thoughts and memories, and I'm like, woo, I have got to find somebody that can help me through this, because
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't do it on my own.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad that you search for help. I think we get, to a certain age and we think like this is it, like this is what we have to deal with,
Mhm.
like I know I've said, like, I'm in my 30s, I should be healed already. Like, it's been 15 years. I need to get over it. And then I end up going back to therapy again, and it's like all over again,
Right. Well, because we're taught to go into therapy and like fix it in our head.
Yeah.
But what I've discovered is the holistic approach is more about the body too. The body remembers so much more than the brain and thoughts are remembering. And then when you're triggered, your body goes into this state of shock and state of worry, the state of terror. That you can't talk your brain into your body not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I started discovering why that's doing that, and looking at it holistically, like the whole body, then I started thinking, oh my goodness, okay, well, my body is just like, okay, we got to learn some techniques and tools that can support the body
Yeah.
and let the body know I'm not, because my abuse started at 9 years old.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. If you didn't mind me asking, like, what kind of abuse you went through, and also, like, when did it happen? Because I know you said that it was when you were young. So I wanted to ask how old you were, and also, like, if you don't mind sharing, like, the relation to the relation to you of who was your abuser. You don't have to ask these, or you don't have to answer these questions if you're not comfortable. You can answer as much as you're comfortable with. But we want to know kind of a backstory, because sometimes our viewers can relate a lot.
Right.
I recently, this past summer, Actually, it's the first time we did the podcast about It Begins With Us. I had just gone out and shared publicly something that happened to me when I was 6 years old. And I had kept it quiet for years and years and years. And my abuser actually passed away a couple of years ago. So to me, it was so healing to be able to come out, and just all the support that I got. But then I also got so much backlash and almost like retaliation. People attacking me because it was their family member. And so I don't know, like a lot of people reached out to me. I can probably count about 30 people that reached out to me that said the same thing happened to them or something very similar. Yeah. So if you could talk about, your experience, to help see if, when somebody relates to it, it helps us heal. Mm-hmm. I feel like.
Yes, so, I agree. I totally agree. So my earlier memories were probably about 7 years old, 9 years old. And it was a friend's father at a sleepover. And so, that's why I have 7 children. I didn't ever do sleepovers because of this.
Yeah.
And it was my friend's father coming into the bedroom at night when we would have sleepovers. And so that was kind of my first like sexual assault. And didn't quite understand. And those memories would just kind of pop up into my head, from 9 years old all the way to I was 51 now. And so, but not the whole thing. So just like random
little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I just never understood that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yes, I know that happened. And I'm fine. I'm not that 9-year-old anymore.
Right.
And then gradually over the years, I grew up in a home that had a lot of drug abuse, and from my mom and my brother. So I have one brother, and I don't have any more siblings, and my mom was a single mom. And kind of her backstory a little bit is, she was in foster care for most of her life. Mm-hmm. Her mother passed away when she was 5 years old of breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And her dad was not able to take care of her. So she couldn't go to other families. So they had her in foster care. So she went from house to house to house. And a lot of trauma happened in those years for her. Mm-hmm. And so raising 2 kids on her own, mm-hmm. She turned to drugs and alcohol to cope. Mm-hmm. And so, and I understand that now as a 51-year-old.
Yeah.
I didn't understand all of that growing up, mm-hmm. but I do now. I do completely understand. And so she had a lot of different men coming in and out of our home, mm-hmm. with all the drugs and parties. And my brother also, both of us, my brother and I, he's 2 years younger than me, mm-hmm. Had full access to any drugs, anytime. And like there really wasn't a whole lot of boundaries when I was growing mm-hmm. up. And so, but also in that lifestyle, there's different men coming in and out of our house. And so I remember 3 other instances.
Wow.
3 other memories that there was a rape, there was sexual assault, and then there was the ongoing abuse. So I really haven't talked a lot about this, but one of my hardest memories that I really had to really dive into the CAP therapy, mm-hmm. Was my brother selling me for drugs and alcohol.
Oh my God.
And
that's horrible.
Reliving that over and over. We lived really close. We lived in Washington, and we lived really close to an army base. up there. And that was some terrifying memories. And that's what I kind of tried to tackle my first year in therapy, just with the psychotherapy. And then that's when I learned more about the ketamine assisted therapy. And then I was like, okay, we got to go that route because I'm not getting very far in this memory. It was very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I started with the CAP therapy.
Yeah.
And that helped me walk through it. Not that I'm not disturbed, I am, because that'll happen, but not at the level that I did prior to that therapy, the ketamine therapy.
Okay.
And so I just saw the difference between me and being able, like, there was no way before ketamine therapy that I would ever be able to talk about that openly and not break down and sob.
Do you have, sorry to interrupt you. No. Do you have a relationship with your brother?
Yeah, I was just going to ask
I do not.
How he...
No. I do not, and I don't with my mother either.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I do not right now. Very early in my therapy, my therapist gave, or what is it? Suggested that I would read this book by Oprah, What Happened to You? And in that book, I got a lot of things out of it. It was extremely triggering, but I read it, and then I brought what was triggering into my therapist, and then we discussed it and worked through those. So that was really helpful. But the things that I really got out of it and that I truly believe is towards the end of the book, Oprah talks about her mom and the abuse that she suffered through her mom, and that she wanted to be able to forgive and to walk through those memories and be okay with her mom without basically her mom.
Yeah.
And so she did a lot of her own therapy. And then when her mom was on her deathbed at the hospital, she says, I can go to that hospital room and I can be okay because I worked through that already. And right then and there, I thought, that's what I need. I don't need a sorry. I don't need an apology. What I need is I need to be okay with me and then understanding of my mom.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at right now is trying to get to that place where that forgiveness is through me. It's not through anybody else. I have to be okay.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to send me a link or the name of the book. Because I think that's honestly, my abuse started with my parents, especially my mom. Still to this day, they're not in my life, but anytime they come around, there is still so much abuse mentally. There was so much physical abuse growing up, but now it's all mental since I was 16 years old. So for 18 years, there's been so much mental abuse towards me that the last 4 years, I haven't had any contact with them. But anytime they get around, my kids or just a whiff of them pretty much. And it's been so hard to live with that. The first 2 years, I believe, was the hardest because I'm like, how do you live with somebody? Like, how can you live without your parents that are actually alive? Like, to me, I say this all the time. My parents are dead to me, but they're alive. And honestly, there's a lot of times where I've also, like, it sounds so horrible, but if they were dead, if they weren't alive right now, it would cost me less hurt than them being alive. They're dead to me alive, if that makes sense.
Right.
But they continue. Yeah, they continue to still hurt me every time they come around. Just their words, their actions. It's almost like I don't understand. I have 3 children of my own. How somebody can hurt their own child so much. And it's not just me. I'm the oldest. I'm the only daughter. I have 4 younger siblings, and I mean, they do it to all of us. And it's so crazy to me that I'm like, how you don't have this relationship with just one of your kids. It's with all of them. You know, how do you not notice that you're the problem? But, you know, they tell everybody that I'm the problem, that my siblings are the problem. And
Right.
I mean, if we look at all of us, we're all upstanding citizens. A lot of people look up to us. Everybody says, wow, your parents must be proud. And the first thing that comes out, no, they're actually not. Yeah. They're not proud of us. And it's taken me so much counseling and just time over and over to just be okay with knowing that I don't have the support from them, and I will never have them in my life in a healthy way. So that, how you explain that book, I think I really would benefit from reading that book, because I need to be
so
okay.
Good.
Yeah, I need to be okay with, you know, there's a lot of times I'm okay with it, and there's other times where it just comes back and it like just hits me in the face, and I'm like, why am I not good enough for them?
Well, and I think it comes back to what she was saying as well, is you need to be able to forgive, right?
Yeah.
But still be okay with not having them in your life. And that's going to be your way of healing yourself with it, and being okay with not having them in your life.
Yeah.
Because you've forgiven them, but you don't need them there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
And
Well,
I've tried.
I'm sorry. I agree. Like forgiveness and having boundaries are two separate things.
Yeah.
And having strong boundaries are necessary even for forgiveness. And so, and the emotions that come along with it all, 100%. That book might be triggering,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's going to give you reflection and thoughts on how to get to that forgiveness. I'm not there. I can't tell you I'm there with my family, but here's the thing I'm starting to understand, that because of the things that happened in their life, they became what they do now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that compassion is probably the key thing to me forgiving my mom and brother.
Yeah.
I'm not there.
Yeah.
But I know that compassion is the key,
right,
to everything. And I know that because God works that way.
Yeah.
Did your mom know what your brother had done?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't
Sure.
know what she knew. Sometimes I think maybe she does. Do I ever think she will ever say, or if I
Right.
ever
Yeah.
asked her? No. I don't
Sure.
think I'll ever get an answer that I need. That's why that was so important to me to like really take on that book with Oprah and really kind of break down that in my own self, because I truly believe, and she is not diagnosed, my mom is not diagnosed with any mental illness, but I believe that she has some mental illness or several, and but she won't go in that direction to go get diagnosed. No, she would never go to therapy or a psychiatrist or anything. She does not believe in that.
Yeah.
And so I
Either
don't
she
think
doesn't believe in it, or
She refuses.
she refuses because she knows what she did was wrong.
Right. So
Yeah.
I shared a quote that something you just said right now, that it really related to me, and I felt like it explains everything you just said. It's trauma explains behavior, it doesn't excuse it. And so I'm always into digging, with people, like, why are they the way they are? And I think it's my way of excusing people's behaviors, like, oh, they're this way because they went through that, because I'm very sympathetic. Is that the word? Empathetic. Yeah, empathetic. And so I always try to figure out what their triggers are, why they act the way they are, but it doesn't excuse their behavior, because like I look at myself and I'm like, I've been through every type of abuse you can think of, and you would never know, because I treat everybody with kindness and respect and love.
And you would never treat your kids
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that when you've been through all of that, that's a survival instinct. You've got to know
Yes.
around you, and you've got to discern if you're going to say anything, not do anything, or you're going to like look for those qualities, because it's been a survival instinct that we've had to use when you are young and or when you are in any kind of abuse. Just our natural body to exist and survive.
Yeah.
And so I see that a lot in women that I've worked with, because I have a very long career, 14 years in Mary Kay, and working with women all across the United States for 14 years. And so you know their story. You see some of the survival instincts that our brain and body automatically do without us even acknowledging or knowing when you're in that survival state. And so yeah, I recognize that. And it's not a bad thing until it doesn't work for us anymore.
I had a big trigger this morning. I was talking to my brother and I got angry, and I yelled and I said, why? Like, why, brother? Why did they do this to us? Why were we not taught love? And I said to him, there's, I repeat quotes all the time because they like, I just relate to them, and it makes me feel like there's somebody out there that understands me. And I told them, like me going through to the same, I repeat over and over, like going back to the same pattern of abuse with somebody, and I don't recognize it from the beginning, and it makes me angry. And I told them, like, I read something, it says, when you are not fed love on a silver spoon, you lick it off knives. And that just, like, to me, I'm like, wow, because of, not being treated with love as a young child, like, I feel like love has to hurt in order for me to receive it,
Right.
It's
well, and then that's what you recognize as love.
Yeah.
And so that's what
Yeah.
you search for. And so that, again, is our survival instinct. That is what we know, because we're more comfortable with abuse than we are when we don't.
Yeah.
When that's not being done.
Yeah.
And so because we don't know any other way other than that. And that's our security, because we know that. And our body is made to do that. Our body is made to find familiar things and cling to it. And so, yeah, I understand that a lot.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. It's painful that we have to go through this, that we had to go through this, because honestly, like, we were just kids, we didn't deserve this.
No, and it wasn't because of us.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I've had to learn through therapy, that shaming part, the shame that comes along with the abuse, and to be able to call it shame when it's shame, and know that it's not us, that we aren't the reason why this was done to us, that we are somehow not lovable, or it's the shame that comes with any kind of abuse that we put on ourselves, and we feel it. And oh my goodness. So my favorite author and speaker is Brene Brown, and I own every single one of her books. And like, I so study the emotions, because all of these triggers I experience always comes down to a negative cognition, something negative that I believe within myself was from those from those experiences. And we do that on ourselves. And so to be able to do evidence-based psychotherapy, which I am all for, EMDR, and which is that one, and IFS, internal family systems. That it's very evidence-based, but it also is your body, and you're feeling your sensations and emotions, and you're going to be able to attach them to those memories and understand why deep down you feel this way about yourself. And it was like a light bulb went on in my life when I was able to attach it to the reason why. It's just like, when you want to know, you want to know why people do what they do.
Right.
You want to know why people think, I want to know that too. That is, I think it's survival instinct too.
Yeah.
But I also want to know about it with me. So I got really curious this last couple of years. And that's why I chose the word surrender. And it's all over my house. And I said, to give oneself over to something. And I just feel like God speaks to me in that way and saying, okay, Stace, surrender to this moment, good, bad, or ugly. How do you feel? What has experience given you? And what are you supposed to learn from it? And how are you supposed to teach and help others? And so when I went to, I don't even know, God puts people and things in my path often. And if I'm aware and I surrender to that experience, then I always have a learning opportunity. So one of the things that just popped up on my social media, I swear my phone hears me everywhere I go. And then it starts popping up everywhere. And then I have these little inklings like God speaking, like, Stace, you need to go this direction. And it was with Sapria. So sapria.org is a huge resource. And they are a nonprofit as well that is based in Utah. So really close to us. And they have one in Georgia as well. For women survivors of sexual abuse as a child. So they're very specific. But I was able to get their resources. Anybody can. Anyone, they're free resources. They're sapria.org, SAPREA. And they have a retreat, a 4-day, I think 4-day or 5-day retreat in Utah. It is free.
Do you know how many times a year they do that, or
so often?
Okay.
Often.
Okay.
So often. And the only thing you have to do is get yourself there. And it was probably one of the most intimidating experiences that had the most benefits for my life that I've ever done. Like, as soon as you walk in that door, I mean, right away, everybody knows why you're there. And that's something that's not talked about.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse as a child is not talked about.
No, it's
and
shameful.
Yes. And that feeling, your whole body feels that shame. And so that's why it was really intimidating to go to. But all the women there went through the same thing. And right away, I felt like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone anymore.
Yeah.
There's other people, and we can openly talk about this. And for those 4 days, they gave you tools and resources every single day in classes and drumming. Like, a lot of these things I never did before, like Tai Chi. So drumming, art therapy. I mean, it was so amazing. And I'm sad you could only go once, but yeah, I would go again in a heartbeat. But their resources are free. And anyone can have them. And so that's the other part of our United Voices Rising is utilizing Sapria. So I've been trained by Sapria to facilitate a women's support group for sexual assault or sexual abuse as a child. So I'm able to do that with their resources every month in Idaho Falls. And that's free. That's free to women to go to and be a part of. And we're not alone. We're not alone. And we can talk about these things.
Yeah.
I have 6 daughters. I have 1 boy, 1 son, but I have 6 daughters. And like, if you look at the numbers for sexual assault, 1 in 3 over the lifetime of a woman will be assaulted. That's half of my children.
Yeah.
That is profound.
Yeah.
We have to talk about this. And we have to do education, and we have to put ourselves out there and tell our story. And even though it's hard, this was the first time I've really told my story other than to my therapist. And so, and I mean, of course, not in detail, but it's a little terrifying, but at the same time, it kind of frees you.
Right.
It kind of frees you to open up and allow people to be open to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well,
Thank
I
you
think
for
this is,
inviting me.
No, thank you for opening up
sharing.
to us and sharing. Like, I know it's not easy. It takes a lot to be able to do that. We have a lot of women that go on our, our page and message us and say, hey, we'd like to be on the podcast. And then when it comes down to it, they have to back away and say, hey, I'm still not ready.
Yeah.
And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. Absolutely do not feel guilty because you're not ready.
Right.
We're not all ready to talk about it. I have somebody that privately messaged me a couple months ago and said, I'm so proud of you. I wish that one day I could come out and say what happened to me. I said, everybody's on their own time.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. And by the way, I not off topic, but I had no idea you were 51. You look 10 years younger, and I could not tell you had 7 kids either. So great job, Mary Kay.
Yeah, for real.
That's what takes care of my skincare, I promise.
It's doing its job.
Yes. Yes, I love it. But I also love the experience that I've had those 14 years to build me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There is not, well, how do I say this? I see God's hand in all of the things, from the abuse and not his hand in doing that, but in me surviving and being able to cope however I did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time now, like being able to say, there's other women out there that need what we have, that have your organization, my organization, all the other ones out there that can help other people get to the place in their life that they're not struggling so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I see that. I see God's hand in that. And I'm just here for it. I'm here to surrender to it and be a part of it. And I was so grateful that I saw your post on Facebook about looking for an office.
Yeah.
It was meant to
It
be.
was meant.
It was totally meant to be. We actually had somebody scheduled today for this podcast. It was somebody Angelica met on TikTok, a great influencer. We can't wait to have him on. And we were about to cancel the thing because he got sick when we were waiting to get on the Zoom meeting. And I saw your name pop up on my phone, and we're thinking, like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna, this time was wasted. Getting everybody together. We 2 of us live here, and then 2 others live in separate towns, and so we're like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Like, this is the second time, like, we have to reschedule after we're all set up. And I told Angelica, hey, what if you message her and see if she would be able to come on right now? And she's like, let me call her. And we're so happy that you were able to come on and say yes last minute. And we're thankful that you spoke. If you don't mind me asking, I have another question for you, and this is honestly to help me. You said you're married, correct?
Yes. Been married 30 years.
Wow. So you've only had one marriage?
Uh-huh.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep. And then we have our 7 kids together.
Awesome. That's so amazing. For someone like me that I feel like keeps getting into the same pattern of relationships, I kind of I guess, what do you... people see success in me when they see me that I left abusive relationships and that I'm a success story because I was able to get out alive, and I'm also able to have my business and be successful and provide for my kids. But the other side of that to me is I'm not successful because I keep going back. Not to that person, but I keep going back to the same patterns.
Right.
And that's so hurtful for me. Today, it just smacked me in the face. And I've wanted to cry all day thinking about, why do I do this to myself? Why do I not recognize the red flags right away? And for you, obviously, I'm sure, marriages are hard, but you've been with your husband. How has that been, like, difficulty wise, or like you been able to be successful in a marriage? I don't know. Hopefully you don't have any type of abuse. I guess I don't know. I don't ask.
No.
I didn't
No,
ask about
not
that.
at all.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Not at all. No, the most sweet, generous man on the earth. No. So my first instinct is, so this isn't like gospel according to Stacy here, but like my first feeling is like to understand why I do or you do what you do and think the way you do. So analyzing and learning that part of you. So if you recognize patterns and you recognize that you get into the same pattern, well, write your pattern down.
I'm just
See
so
that
nice. I have such a hard time, like, saying no, and my boundaries just keep getting like broken, even though I set boundaries. I'm obviously stronger, like every time I've left a relationship, when it gets bad, it's like I leave it sooner now. I don't stay there as long. But it's like, why do I keep the love bombing? It just, when there's no love bombing, like, it's just boring to me. It doesn't feel good. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship that doesn't want everything with me right away. It doesn't feel right if it's too slow. Like, even though I want to take things slow, I like the adrenaline, the love bombing of them, saying you're everything I ever wanted. When they tell me that. And maybe,
so I guess my question would be, why? And things that you gotta, and you may not know. You may not know right now. But like, why? Why is that important to you?
Maybe because like my parents always like made me feel like I wasn't enough. So when somebody tells me I'm everything to them, that heals me.
Yeah, it heals you.
If you were my daughter, so I have 6 daughters, so I give a lot of mother advice. If you were my daughter, I would say to you, sis, this might be the time God needs you to work on you and not a relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done that. I've been single for a long time. Like, I'll stay single for a long time. Like, I won't even look at men, honestly. Like, I've been on dating sites, and everybody that tries to match with me, I'm just like, X, you got this, you got that. Like, I see everything wrong first before I even see anything right. And I'm just like, I'm just not even open. I tell everybody I'm intimidating. I've learned from my mom, because she was never a single mom. She's always been with my dad, but she lived alone for a long time when we were in Mexico, and my dad was here in the United States. So she had to be intimidating to men, so she didn't get abused. We lived in a town. It's so different in Mexico. So she had to be intimidating, and she always taught me that, to be strong, to be what we call RBF, where you just, nobody wants to look at you because you're just this mean person. You're unapproachable. And she always taught me that. And she said, she would always say, like, if you're in a relationship, you have to act a certain way. And I've always made sure like that. And even when I'm single, I act that way. I am unapproachable. That doesn't mean I'm mean or that I don't let people come near me, but it's almost towards men that I'm unapproachable. They're scared to talk to me. They're scared to look at me because I don't let them come in. But then something happens, whatever happens, when I do let them come in, I always let the wrong people in.
Right. So it sounds to me, and I'm not a therapist, nor do I even almost have that knowledge. but it sounds to me like this unapproachable is how you cope.
Yeah, I
And then
don't let
the
people in, but then when I do let them in, I let them all in,
right.
and then
So
it's too much.
it keeps going back to like your parents. Do you agree with your parents? Do you agree with how they raised you to think?
No.
Okay. So that's the pattern that you have, is you keep going back to agreeing with your parents.
Yeah.
And so maybe having more of an awareness of your behavior, their behavior, what is the same, what do you want to change? You are a grown up, you get to decide. You get to decide who you are, who you want to be, who you're not. You get to decide. And changing those patterns may have to be a daily recognition and awareness like none other. Plaster it all over your house. When I work with women in Mary Kay, I have them plaster words, verses, anything that is going to let them know who they are, truly are, not who their parents think they are, but who they are, or their abusers. Because I've many times in my Mary Kay business, I've seen that abuse in others' homes, and I recognize it because I was there before. So,
Right.
And that's
I
what I would
mean,
have like Naya do, like when she was younger, going through, trying to figure out all of her feelings. I'm like, hey, I want you to write down every affirmation that you, not what mom believes or dad believes, but what you believe that you see in yourself. And I want you to put those sticky notes on your bathroom mirror. And
everywhere.
every morning before you leave, before you walk out the door, you read every single one of those. And that is who you are. And I feel like with you going back to what your mom taught you, it's like that's holding on to some of her power. Like she has that power over you. Don't let her have that over you. You know what I mean?
I know it's like I've been to counseling so many times. I've done a lot of healing on my own. Like I love myself. I like who I am. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I actually am so comfortable with myself, but I'm like,
but maybe you're still seeking approval from
from
your
sure.
parents that are just not there. So I think that stops you from truly following who you are, like genuinely the kind-hearted person that you are. I think that you get so confident, but then there's a point where you're still waiting.
Yeah.
And that's what
I also don't think that we in every area of our life we're super confident in. I think that we can be confident in different areas of our life. Like, I'm pretty confident in raising my children. I have only 2 left at home out of 7. I'm not so confident. I'm also a full-time college student right now. I'm not so confident in my classes. And so one of them's kicking my trash already, and it's only the first week of this class. And so I think that we, as a whole, can be confident overall, but there's still areas in our life that we're not.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I think that's God's way of saying, okay, Stace, maybe we need to work in this area now. You got the other areas. Let's work here. And I think that's part of our growth. And it's part of, like, our growth is never ending.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm at 51 years old and I have yet had a day that I have not grown from. So, I just don't think that not one person on this planet has all areas of their life in the confidence area.
Yeah.
That's what we're all here for.
Look at it. Yeah.
one day at a time.
Yes, for sure.
So I had an honor of attending Stacy's meeting last month, and it is phenomenal. It is.
Yeah, I want to go to the next one.
It is for your own self, like the way that she does it and the way that Supriya has it set for her. It's not about what happened yesterday. It's not about what happened 10 minutes before you walked in. It's about that specific second that you're there and you're writing everything down. And I love that she has us write everything down. Like, how are you feeling? Like, how do you feel like you're doing? Like, it's true. And then you get to look back at it and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
But you get to like open up to yourself, essentially, on paper. You open up to yourself, you let everything out, and then you read it back to yourself. But it's like you're telling yourself in the mirror, but like you're reading and listening at the same time. And it's a for me, it was a different type of healing. I've never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And I thought it was phenomenal. Like that night I probably slept so good for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
But it's like, it goes to what we were talking about. When we go to the gym or when we're, out and about, we always talk about what we've gone through. And it's crazy because then we're both like, oh, it's another trigger. Or she'll text me or I'll text her. And we're like, we just had another trigger. And we talk about it. But then it's like releasing it.
Yeah.
It's like it comes back up sometimes. Like when you were going through your health stuff and you scared the crap out of everybody. Like, I think it was your body's way. It's like what Stacy said. Your body's way of catching a trigger without your mind even realizing it. And then you were okay.
Yeah.
But it was scary.
It's
scary to go back through your triggers and all of that. But then when you fully look at it and you see it and you feel it, you're able to let it go. And you're like, I'm okay now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Sapria has this thought process like somatics. So like soma, meaning the body, the mind and body work together, and they're not always on the same wavelength whatsoever. And so Sapria goes in and like teaches you what your body's doing and like and how it functions. So it has some neurobiology, it has some physiology, it has the whole entire mind and body. And when you start to learn why you might get triggered or where you start to feel it in your body, like I have certain triggers or certain thought process that I can feel in my body first, and then I'm like, oh shoot, dang, that's going to come up. And so I really do appreciate how Sapria goes in and teaches it, and it's not just what happened to you, but like your whole body. And once you know, it's easier to understand. It's just like understanding why a person does what they do and say and think.
Yeah.
You start to understand yourself, and you start gaining that confidence in yourself. And that's what those meetings are there for, and that support and the understanding that you're not doing this on your own.
Yeah.
Like there's others there to help support you.
Yeah. Do you have an upcoming date like set for
Yes.
your next? Yeah.
Yes, it is always the third Saturday at 3:00 over there of the month. And so it's on the 18th at 3:00
Okay.
over at Eagle Eyes Sales.
Okay. Eagle Eye
Sales
Produce.
Take off Woodruff.
On
Yep.
Lincoln.
Eagle Eyes Produce is on Woodruff.
On Woodruff.
Yeah,
Oh,
Woodruff.
okay. I know which one.
So like where we went for that
yes.
event. Yes.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to
and-
go to one. I think that would be,
Yeah.
because I mean, I don't relate on like relationship, physical and mental abuse, but when it comes to like sexual abuse, I relate. I shouldn't say a little bit, because in that I was 6 years old, and like my mom was a single mom, and she met a lady, trusted her to babysit me while she went to work, and she would drop me off early in the morning, and I would always, it's so vivid, she would always have like one of those roll out mattress pads for me to lay on to sleep until like 8 or 9 in the morning, but after my mom would drop me off. And her husband started to sexually abuse me when I was 6. And at that age, I didn't know what was right and wrong. I just knew that.
You probably didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't talk, like I didn't know how to approach my babysitter, because she'd sleep, but her husband would always come out into the living room and crawl into, under the covers with me. And I never told my mom, like I said, but I would always take a bath. And my mom said she noticed that I would, when she'd put me in the bathtub with like all those little frou-frou bubbles and stuff, I would just cry. And so she finally asked me, like, what's wrong? And I would tell her, like, it hurts. And so my mom's like, that's weird. Like, I've always been you've always loved bubble baths. Yeah. And even at that time, I still didn't know because I'm 6 at the time, right?
Right.
But yeah, she ended up taking me. So she took me out and she, looked at me and she's like, oh my God, like, what's going on? She took me to the doctor. And that's when I finally, they had asked me because they actually took my mom out of the examination room.
Right.
And then I will never forget, we had 2 doctors and then there was, I don't know, maybe she was a nurse or something. And so they had to go through all those questions. Like, is somebody touching you? Is somebody hurting you? And then that's when I started, oh yeah, it was just such a nightmare. And I remember my mom just bawling because she trusted this person with me. And the fact that she never stopped her husband, who I to this day don't even know if she knew.
Yeah.
And my mom went to press charges on him and everything, but he ended up fleeing back to Mexico, never was found. But you guys talking about triggers, it kind of brings me into like my marriage. Like it makes me wonder if there's certain triggers that trigger me into like, I don't like being intimate with like lights on. I don't like to be fully unclothed. So it always makes me wonder if me being sexually abused as a child has something, if those are my triggers.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to touch base on that too. I didn't think about doing that today, but exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of embarrassing and it's very private to talk about, but I've had a conversation a couple times with partners that I can't masturbate. I don't know how, and I hate it, and I think it's disgusting. And I think it has a lot to do because of the sexual abuse I experienced as a child. Because my mom beat me at 3 years old and 4 years old when I was molested. The first time I talked about it, that I realized it was a problem, I was 15 when I ran away, and health and welfare got involved, and they asked me, when did your mom change? And I vividly remember these things when I was 3 years old. I remember them happening to me, and my mom beat the crap out of me.
Because you said something.
I said something, and I didn't know that it was wrong. And so when it happened when I was 6 years old, I didn't tell her. She didn't find out till I was in that room with health and welfare, and they came in and said, did you know this happened to your daughter? And my dad was in complete shock. Like, why did you not tell me this? And I said, why wouldn't my mom tell you?
Yeah.
Like, did my mom tell you? Like, you guys talk about everything. You guys are a team. And he's like, no, she never told me. And I said, yeah, our neighbor, 3 different times by the time I was 6 years old, I was molested. First time I was 3 years old with a neighbor. He was a cousin of mine. The second time, it was our neighbor across the street. She molested me and my brother. The third time, it was her dad, that neighbor's dad. And when I came out and talked about this, like, how did this 7-year-old, why was she doing that to a 4 and 2-year-old? Why was she molesting us at 7 years old?
She probably went through that's what she knew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it always comes down to like the things that you experience makes you think and do and
like
now. And so
Yeah.
everybody's like that. It's not just us, it's everybody before us and our parents and grandparents
Yeah.
and it's just the behavior is um it's part of our own experience, and we adapt. Our body adapts, our thought processes adapt.
Yeah.
And so everything in that, even sexually with your partner or husband, and
Yeah.
like everything, different things trigger it. It's because of
Yeah.
your prior experiences.
And everybody's
Yeah.
different. You know, I
Hmm.
know women that have told me, that have said I was sexually abused as a child. So by the time I was 10 years old, I was already sexually active because that's what I
Hmm.
knew.
Yeah.
Like, I craved
Okay.
that.
Yeah, that's common. So that I learned that through Supriya's training and
Mm-hmm.
resources. Just even going to the retreat, they teach you like some of the very common things that we think are either odd or like, or everybody else must be the same way because you don't talk about it to people,
Right.
but yet you're like, well, it must be a thing. Everybody just does it because we just don't talk about it. And then to go and understand that that's common in people that were sexually assaulted and sexually abused or abused in any way. Those are common things, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, like, in the last couple years where that topic has came up, you know, being single and just like we have needs, and just me not being able to take care of myself because I can't do that. Like, I think it's disgusting. And then just, you know,
That's
going
exactly
back,
how
like,
I feel too.
yeah, like, why do I feel this way? And people ask me questions, you know, and I'm like, I don't know why. And then it took me back. I had to dig really, really deep inside. Well, when I was molested and my mom slapped me and she hit me with the belt and told me I wasn't allowed to talk about those things, that I wasn't allowed to touch myself, she instilled in that was a bad thing, that it wasn't okay for me to do that. That when I felt pleasure because I touched myself there, because I remembered being molested, that I don't feel good about it. You know, it doesn't, I can't do it.
Right.
And so, yeah,
I
it's
just can't
crazy.
imagine. I mean, I am so thankful that my mom was so understanding and supportive, and even being at 6, like, did everything in her power to get me the help that I needed. And I think that's why I've pushed that memory so far back, and it just doesn't
Affect you?
affect me
Yeah.
in like a daily life. But when it comes to being intimate with my husband,
Right.
I mean, even in prior relationships, right? Like, there's certain things I'm like, oh, that's disgusting. People are like, why? Like, that's like natural. And I'm like, but I never went back to thinking maybe
Yeah.
that is
A trigger.
The trauma,
a
yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
from that situation that happened to me for a while.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm actually excited. I want to go to
One of the
Yeah.
her events.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
if
really
you guys
good.
are listening, January 18th at 3 p.m. at the Eagle Eye Produce, right on Lincoln, sorry, Woodruff. You are invited to this event. We'd love to have you. Is there any requirements, Stacy, that or anything you need to bring to attend?
No, we supply everything, and just know that it is for women of sexual abuse as a child. And
As a
so
child.
yes, no, our nonprofit, United Voices Rising, is for women of all sexual assault and abuse, so all ages. But Supriya is very specific
Specific.
with, yeah, but other than that, it is it's open to those that have had that experience and abuse. You don't have to bring anything. Like every single month, I go ahead and print out everything that needs to be done and print it and bring it in. So just bring yourself.
Awesome.
We got everything
Well,
else.
Yeah.
You guys are invited January 18th at 3 p.m. Again
Yep.
at
And it's
Eagle
the
Eye.
sales building. Yes.
sales
Yeah.
building.
So there's
Perfect.
two, actually there's three buildings, but there's two buildings. One of them is the Ammon one. That's the warehouse. That one's not the one, but it's a sales building on Woodruff.
On Woodruff.
And so that everybody knows, this support group that we do is survivor ran. So it's not therapist ran or anything. So it's just survivor ran, and
love
that's
that.
how we do our training.
Perfect.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, we've
About
expressed a lot of
Yeah.
feelings, and we talked about a lot of different things. I think you would be great to have on another time.
Yes.
To have you back for a second episode with you. You have a lot of knowledge and helpful tips and information that we need with this support group that we have, and we'd love to have you back again. It's getting a little late, so I think we're gonna end today's podcast with this, and it was so great to have
Yes.
you.
We
Thank
appreciate you
you.
so much, Stacy.
And
Oh,
thank you for sharing
having
your
me.
story.
Yes.
I'm sure it wasn't easy, but that's awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you for allowing me to have this platform to share with.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys are doing some really great things.
Thank you.
Guys, see you later.
See ya, Stacy. Good night.
Bye.
It Begins With Us is a supporting podcast for 1614 Revival Foundation.
Please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever possible. That really helps the show reach more people.
You can follow us on social media. The links are in the show notes. Do not hesitate to reach out. See you next time.